There. Something's wrong with my nutmeg. It must have been busted. Okay, there we go. Welcome to the Nutmeg Tavern. I'm your host, John Townsend, and we are here again this week. It's Friday, and it's quiet in the bar here. Thank goodness. Normally, I've got a rowdy bartender back here that's causing lots and lots of issues, but he's not there. He's behind the console.
Hey guys, how
There
you
he
doing?
is. There he is.
Good to see you.
He's usually better behaved back there.
Well,
Thank goodness, because I don't think I could handle it if it was any different than that. I don't know. Let's see. Do we have any special news that I need to talk about right off the top? No. Ryan can't think of anything. If we think of it, we'll think of it later. It's been a busy week. We've been working on more cooking episodes. We've been, again, digging into what kind of videos we're going to be able to do this year. I was just having a conversation with Ryan, and we were talking about how maybe we don't want it to be as busy as it was last year because we were running the whole time. You know, it felt like every week it was, we've got this thing scheduled. We're going to drive down here, and then we're going to do this thing, and then we got a big project. And that was a lot to get done last year. So thankfully, I think this year we're just going to take a little bit of it. We're still going to have some great projects, but it's not going to be quite as hot and heavy.
it was a busy year. I liked it. I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. We met with wonderful people. We had just fantastic trips, but that was just too much. Today's topic is one that is near to dear and interesting, something that I've kind of studied and played around with for decades. Always an interesting topic because everybody has to deal with it, and that is money in the 18th century. And we live in very, very weird times in the modern world, and what we think of as money, how we look at our money, how we judge our money around the world is so very, very strange in the last, say, 100 years compared to what it was all the time before that. It's like money for thousands of years was this, right? And then money starts to really change what it is in the 20th century and then what we have today. So today we're going to be looking at 18th century money, and it is classic, you know, for the most part, especially what I've got here, hard money. The kind of money that, changed hands and that everyone trusted, even if it wasn't their country's money or their country's, say, coinage. I've got this little section I want to read to you out of. This is it's titled "The Unfortunate: The Voyage and Adventures of William Morley, an Indentured Servant." And William Morley was a fairly well-to-do when he was a child, and he was sort of well-educated, but he misspent his youth. And he was going to kind of go back and get into the trade of his father, and then his father died. He didn't have very good relationship with his mother after that, and then he kind of bummed around in England for a year or two. He ran completely out of money, and then he went and did the most sort of desperate step of indenturing himself and going to the New World. And he has many interesting adventures in this book. And part of the things that are happening in this book is he just describes things. He figures, hey, I'm going to tell people in England about what it's like in America. This is he's writing from the 1740s perspective. And he's telling people, money is very scarce, when he's talking about the New World, being carried from province to province, from whence it never returns. So they're obliged to emit more new every 3 years, so more new money. English money is the most valuable, 1 guinea passing for 28 shillings. Now he says that because 1 guinea which is a gold coin. I don't think I've got my guinea over here somewhere. No, anyway, a golden guinea is kind of like about a shilling size, about that size. I'll show you in a different camera, but about this, it's a size of a thin quarter. It goes for 28 shillings. Normally in England, that would be 21 shillings. So a guinea is worth extra money. In the New World, every shilling is worth 18 pence. Normally they're 12 pence. 6 pence are for 9 pence. So if you've got a 6 pence piece, and this is just a tiny little 6 pence piece here, it's like as thin as a dime and a little bit bigger, goes for 9 pence. A halfpenny goes for a penny. But as there are not enough to supply the exigence of the state, I'm not sure exactly what word he was looking for there, both paper and parchment money passes for current coin by the authority of the governor and the assembly. A petition being lodged with the governor setting forth that the money is either defaced or dispersed into the other provinces, so that there is a necessity of new emissions, perhaps to the value of 40 or 50,000 pounds. So sometimes when he's describing things, you're like, okay, I'm not sure exactly what he means, but he's talking about the English hard coinage money being worth an extra quantity to the kind of currency that's being actually put out in the colonies. And the colonies weren't issuing coin money. In fact, they may not have been legally able to before, obviously, the Revolution, but they were able to do paper money. And we've got some paper money examples here. These aren't, this isn't paper money from the time period. These are reproduction pieces. Got it all sealed up here, and I forgot to open it. But here is a piece of paper money. So there's a New York. This is a sixth of a dollar. So it's printed on both sides. And that's a New York shilling and 4 pence. So they thought a dollar was 6 times a shilling and 4 pence. Sounds about right. Here is a $2 piece of paper money. And there are some other ones. Certificate for continental dollars, and there's an 18 pence piece. Isn't that like, I love the values. $3. There's a $3 bill for you. There you go. So fancy printing, sometimes 2-color. They were trying to obviously make it hard to counterfeit, and there were some very, very stiff counterfeit laws going on in the time period. So let's look at the coinage. Darn if I don't have my my guinea here, but that's kind of the top of the heap. Here is a guinea. You can go to this.
Yeah, so that I'm actually on it. And it's not, the back cam and the side cam are the same image. I don't know why, so we might just have to use the forward facing one unless you know a quick fix.
He's trying to make it difficult for me. I had it working. Back cam and side cam. Go to your. I don't know if I want to travel through the vortex to make this thing happen. It sounds very dangerous.
I can switch to the. Let me switch to a card real quick.
Okay.
Hey guys, we'll be right back.
Yep. So, I think we're back. Whew. I think I got a sunburn going through the time vortex. Okay, so go ahead and pop into that.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, let me find myself here. Here we go. Here is, I don't have a guinea, so here is a. Let me find the right spot. There, kind of the right spot. There we go. Can I get him right side up? No. Whew. This is sort of like a silver dollar. It is a crown piece from 1743, I think. And a crown piece is a real typical piece of money. So here's actually the original. It's silver, so it's highly tarnished. This is the reproduction piece. And it's got little milling along the edge so that it's hard to copy this. Or not copy it. So it's difficult to shave off the silver on the edge, so-called clipping coins. Which if you don't have that milling along the edge, then you get in trouble with that. So this is worth about, compared to a pound, there'd be like 4 of these in a pound. Now, let's see. This is the Spanish version, the Spanish mill dollar. And I think this is 1755. This would be almost exactly the same weight. And it would pass for almost the same quantity of money in the 18th century. So they would say if a crown is worth 5 shillings, they would say this is worth 4 shillings and 9 pence. So just a little bit under what a crown is going to go for. Now here's a shilling. Where is that shilling? Here's the no. Boy,
it's gone the way of the guinea.
It's like they're all disappearing in front of me. Where'd they go? I had it in my hands. And here, where'd he go? Here we go. Here's a shilling. Here we go. A shilling. So it's about a quarter size, but very thin, and you can see it's like, ooh, real thin. Now this one is a Lima shilling. It's got written down here right underneath the head. It says Lima on it, and that's because the British are kind of like making fun of the Spanish here because they stole the silver to mint these coins, or they captured them in a battle, right? And so they said, hey, you look. Citizen, you have a coin that's made from silver of something that was captured from the Spanish. And half a shilling is a 6 pence. So each shilling is worth 12. So there's a 6 pence piece. Again, super thin little guy, like a dime, but a little bit bigger. Now, normally you go straight down into small coinage after that. You go straight to a halfpenny. In our time period, let me find one that's not so tarnished. There we go. So there's a copper halfpenny, and here's like an Irish halfpenny. So some of these coins, they weren't popular, which is you find kind of, I mean I find kind of odd, but I guess not really. We have unpopular coins, don't we, or haven't we in the past? Think about a Susan B. Anthony dollar, right? Right. Nobody wanted the Susan B. Anthony dollar. Here's our guinea here. I
still have a Susan B. Anthony dollar.
Right, Susan B. Anthony dollar. Now, so nobody liked the Susan B. Anthony dollar. Now, what if we said, well, okay, nobody liked the Susan B. Anthony dollar. What are we going to do with it? I don't know what they did with Susan B. Anthony dollars. I mean, like they just chucked them in a vault or something. But this is an example of something like a Susan B. Anthony. Do I have one that looks? Here it is. It kind of has this little L thing. There you go. And on the back. Now this is French coinage. This was coinage that didn't have the full amount of silver in it. It's only like 40% silver instead of 90% silver. Everyone rejected this coin in the time period, and so they sent it out to the colonies. So it'd be like us saying, "Oh, well, I don't know, Susan B. Anthony dollars. Let's send them to Puerto Rico or Guam or something." That's what they did, and so the colonies end up with sort of cast-off coinage. There's this one, and I believe the Irish halfpennies, same deal. It's one of those, well, they're not very popular, so we're going to send them off to the colonies because, well, you know, they get whatever they deserve, which isn't very much. So there was the halfpenny. There is one coin that's smaller than a halfpenny. There's a farthing, right? So you've probably heard all these terms. Britannia's on the back. George is on the front there. You've heard all these sorts of coinage terms, a shilling, farthings, halfpennies. I love the term halfpenny. There are some other terms that are out of favor in the time period, like groats, and some other ones. Now, there is a coin that's in between the halfpenny and the sixpence. Now, you would think, obviously, a penny's in between there, right? Here is a period. There is a period penny. You can see it says 1 on the top there. That's a penny from the 18th century, but they were very rare in circulation. Can you imagine trying to circulate those guys? It's like, whoops, oh, I dropped that penny. They had tuppence. There's a two. Trying to get it in front of that. The time vortex is like all wibbly wobbly here, so it's really hard for me to get things to show up through it. There's a 2 pence. There's a 3 pence. These were pretty rare in the time period. They just they're usually called Maundy money, and they were only sort of issued in certain years, and they were many times given away as sets to poor people. So it's real kind of weird, strange money, and almost impossible to copy, to make pewter duplicates of to sell in sets, because it's so massively thin that it's just very difficult to make duplicates. Here, there's a giant coin in the collection here, 5 kopecks. There's a 5 kopeck piece, giant, thin. I mean, you could hurl that at somebody and just knock them out. You could use it as a weapon. These were minted basically right at the mine. So, the bigger the lump, the more production you got, or the better it was. Not worth a tremendous quantity of money. There is in the collection here some smaller coinage. There's some there's a German states little coin there. What is this one? This one's a Pfennig. And somewhere I've got a 2 Heller. Oh, those are fun. All these kinds of coinage did circulate in the colonies. There we go. There's the piece I was looking for. They did circulate in the colonies. In fact, these guys here, those Spanish mill dollars, they're legal tender in the United States until like the 1850s. So they passed dollar for dollar. So this would pass as a silver dollar in the time period, even though we did have silver dollars. But, and there is sort of the French equivalent of a crown piece. This one is, I get all these upside down just automatically. It's an écu. And this one is from the 1723. And if you look here on the back, see if I can get the light to show it. You can see how flat it is. There's the money from this time period was defaced during the French Revolution. So they didn't like the monarch, and they would scratch on the coins. They still didn't want to get rid of the coins, but they would scratch the coins, damage them, purposefully defacing their previous ruler. Woo! Lots of money. Oh, here's this last piece I was going to show you. Oh, there is. Speaking of French Revolution, this is French paper money from the 1790s, whatever that is. So it's an assignat. It's one of the let's see, it says 1792 on it. paper money and the massive inflation thereof, it really dates from this kind of time period and what happened here with the French paper money of the 18th century. Woo! There we go. That's a lot. That's a lot of, it's like all these coins over here. Gotta make some room here. Whew. What do you think, Ryan? Do we have questions?
Yeah, we do. I'm gonna start. Well, let me see. I want to start here.
It's like, where are we gonna start?
Okay, so the coin collection that we sell, is that what could that be considered what a traveler's purse would be like?
It would be a pretty heavy purse. At least something like, the set that we sell has a guinea in it, which probably the equivalent of walking around with a $500 bill. You've got a crown, a shilling. Well, there's a half crown. I think we took out the half crown. A crown. Yeah, I think it's pretty typical of a purse. I mean, a lower order person, a crown piece might be the biggest piece of money they had versus a guinea, but something like that.
Okay. And then, did people carry these just in big purses, or did they know what they would need for the day and only have a little bit in their pockets, or how did people use all this coinage?
Well, I think day-to-day people are going to carry not very much in their pocket. They will, if they might have a leather purse and hanging around their neck and have, a larger quantity of money, 5 or 10 guineas, but that's a lot of money. That's a tremendous quantity of money. So normally people are going to have just a few of these coins in their pocket, and a drink in a bar, in a tavern might cost you a half penny. So if you've got a shilling, you've got enough for the evening, right? So you don't need a lot in your pocket. Okay.
I'm going to get into some super chats for a second.
Okay.
Because I haven't touched those yet. So Harshman Hills sends in a donation, says, toss a coin to your host.
Oh, thank you.
Mikula Terdax, good morrow from the mother country. Just wishing to acquire, using a modern rasher of Canadian bacon as a measure. How much meat did the average person or family eat in the 18th century per week? That's a really hard question.
Yeah, that's almost impossible.
Yeah,
Although
that word average is so difficult.
Yeah, because there is no such thing as an average, apparently. At least, it's like a typical person. Well, no one's typical. But the idea, especially bacon, is the bacon cut is one of the least expensive and most common cuts for common people in the 18th century to have and to use. So that there are many poor families that they're not going to eat very much meat at all. If they do, then it is going to be something like that. But that isn't to say that meat doesn't show up on the table, ever. It's so strange, because you'll read different stories and they'll be one way or the other.
Right, and that idea of primitive cookery is supposed to be for poorer folks, and that doesn't have a whole lot of meat in it.
Right.
Then we go to JD and the Hizzle. Townsends, greetings from Atlanta, Georgia. Laura and Jeremy here. We love the show and the store, especially the mushroom ketchup. Mike Howell, happy Friday, Townsends. Were the foods other than tomatoes that were mistakenly believed to be poisonous? Were illnesses ever attributed to them?
Yes, but I don't have any examples that I can think of off the top of my head, unfortunately. And sometimes it isn't necessarily a particular food that's always poisonous, but sometimes the how to cook it was poisonous.
Oh yeah, right.
It's
we talked with cleaning pots and that sort of thing.
Right. Well, I don't even mean that. I mean that they're mistaken about it. So you might say, oh, you can eat this fish, but only hot out of the pan. If you let it get cold, it'll kill you.
Yeah. Well, there was a drink that we were talking about not too long ago.
Yeah, it's like,
Oh no, there was bread. Right?
Yeah, you're right.
Like don't
Right.
eat hot bread.
yes, yeah. So there are some examples that are like that, and there are other ones that they just thought were plain unpalatable. Maybe not poison, like garlic. Why would anybody eat garlic, right? And of course, it's like everybody enjoys garlic today. Maybe not everyone. Most people enjoy garlic today.
If they know what's good for them.
There we go. So I'll think about that one. I'll probably come up with some other ones. They also ate some things that are poisonous, but they didn't think were poisonous. How's that? So there's a flower called a tansy, and they had sort of a pie kind of thing that they would make with a tansy, and apparently tansy is just plain straight up not good for you.
Okay, so Mike Hal came in right after that one with another super chat. Was there any sort of system of credit, like credit cards used today? If so, how were the debts repaid?
Yeah, you could draw on your bank. You could sort of, write checks. You could sort of do IOU things. There were items like that, and there was a lot of credit transactions going on. Now, they weren't so standardized as that you would have a card, right? But you would certainly, have other means of doing letters of credit back and forth. And sometimes the credit kind of worked in a triangle. So you would say, I went to the store and I got $10 worth of corn, and then you would that debt might be paid by someone else. So you got something, or you gave something to someone else, and then they paid the store back. Those kinds of transactions would go on. So you would rack up debts, and you would have different ways of getting them paid off. But it's really hard to go into debt with people you don't know. That's what credit cards are nice for, because we can hand it over like it's, in theory, money, and the person trusts the card because, of course, they jam it in a machine and it tells you, yes, this is okay. But if you don't have anything like that, you don't have that way to instantly check back about whether this person is good for it, then you don't trust that transaction. Now, there are times you might draw on a bank or draw on something that person is like, okay, I kind of trust this, and they would charge you an exorbitant rate. So you might say, hey, I need some local money. I'll give you a check for $100, and you can cash that, but you might only give me $50 in exchange because you're not really sure whether that's worth it. So that's that's a common thing going on too.
So somebody just topped in the chat and thought that maybe an episode on banks in general in the future is a good idea, which would be hard but fun.
Yeah.
Six Finger Jake is in super chat. As a father of three myself, I told them I'd ask how kids kept themselves entertained back then. I appreciate your time and I love the channel.
Kids, there was play. There was a certain quantity of that, but children's lives in the 18th century is a lot more about training people to be adults. And children are very quickly put into the workforce or used in family situations. The home situation is just straight up, it's like a factory. Every house has got things going on. They've got chores to do. They may be manufacturing things or doing things, and children are involved in that at a very early age. And there are different authors that talk about going to different places and saying, "Oh boy,
Oh,
they're 5 years old."
we lost your microphone, John. I don't know what happened. It just fell out.
Put us on a card and we'll switch to a different mic.
All right, we'll be right back, guys. So sorry.
Testing. All right. This little switch somehow got switched.
Okay.
I guess. Okay. Are we still working? Are we back?
Yes, we
Yes.
are back. We're live.
This time vortex is tricky today.
This is supposed to happen when Aaron's here.
Yes, Aaron. So anyway, kids are working. There is play going on. There is school going on. Sometimes school is only one day a week, and children are apprenticed out. They're learning a trade very early sometimes.
Somebody asked in the chat for the book title of what you were reading earlier.
Okay. This book is called I said it wrong. The Infortunate. Isn't that? This is William Morley, and the authors are Susan Klepp and Billy G. Smith, and just an excellent book for what's a fun one. The modern sort of introduction is good, and then of course his writing is just hilarious, and he's one of those people that gets away with just about. I mean, he's bumming all around the colonies. He's wearing rags, and still he gets to rub elbows with people like Benjamin Franklin or something. It's amazing.
So somebody came in the chat earlier and asked about currency being accepted in other countries. How'd that go?
Yeah, currency is crossing borders a lot. The thing about almost all of these currencies, especially the silver and the gold, is that the worth that's here is the weight and what it's made out of. And so you would, if you had somebody was coming with other countries' coinage, well, if you didn't know exactly what it was, you'd just weigh it and, oh, there we go. Here's our conversion rate. Easy peasy. It's always the same. They don't have to worry about, one country's currency going up versus going down, because it's worth what it's worth, because it's straight up metal. So there's not a lot of issue with that. Now, copper coinage, not the same. But it's like going to buy a car with $1 bills. It doesn't happen. So people don't, the small copper coinage is for that kind of local small trading, and then silver money, gold money, that is good hard currency, good everywhere you go.
Okay, so the folks are just like filling up the super chat. We're going to have to condense our answers. We think so much. I'm going to try to read every single one.
Okay.
Sue O'Connor says, were there really wooden nickels?
I don't. That's a 19th century thing?
Yeah, right. That's where I was. Okay, Asuma, were any of the coins used as bullion back then?
Yeah, that idea that, silver is silver and gold's gold, that's the bullion kind of concept of stuff. And coins would be melted down. Sometimes there's a little bit of sort of trade going on, and it happened a lot with American silver dollars. They were a little bit heavier than the Spanish mill dollar, and so all the American dollars disappeared. They melted them down.
Wow. Okay, so these are both questions that were in the chat. One is right now, somebody said, how would a silversmith check to see how pure the silver was if somebody brought something to him? And another person asked about checking for counterfeit money.
Yeah, so both of those issues have to do with the idea of how much volume it takes up and how much it weighs. So if it takes up that's that whole Archimedes, he's in the bathtub, and he's running through the streets saying, I figured it out, right? Same deal, same idea. How much volume does it take up? Hey, this doesn't weigh enough, or it weighs too little. And there was counterfeiting going on big time. There's this one that's like a fake guinea I've got here someplace. Anyway, yeah, it's real common to do that. Sometimes they would just like plate things to make it look like it was gold when it wasn't, etc.
Okay. Speed us down, Tony's in super chat. What was a halfpenny?
A halfpenny is a halfpenny. It's just a shortened version of that.
Okay. Joe Sereno. Hi, John. Hi, John. Sending you the equivalent of $2 and a question for you. Were there really wooden nickels? Another one.
Yeah, as far as I know, I've heard of wooden nutmegs, but I'm not sure about where the wooden nickels fit into history. I'm pretty sure that I'm not sure where that's based from.
Okay. Luke G comes in on Super Chat. Any plans for a video on the importance of the fur trade in the 18th century, or a cooking video of what the voyagers would have eaten in the interior? Love the show and the channel.
Yeah, fur trade is it's a very important topic, and we haven't really talked about it very much. Boy, if I could only spell. And the pemmican series, we talk a bit about voyager food, and they were using pemmican to make different things. So I would check that series out.
Yeah. Okay. Serial number YM63. You guys do great work.
Thank you.
And the Nutmeg Tavern streams have gotten me through some rough times. So thanks. Stay safe out there. Hal, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
The RP424. Thanks for the videos. Quick question. Would a commoner carry a leather money wallet like you guys carry in your store?
Yeah, especially if you're going to be carrying paper money, because it's just like little coinage that kind of works really well in a small leather purse that you can draw the string and stuff wouldn't fall out. This might come out of a leather wallet, but the leather wallet holds different sorts of things, documents, paper money.
Yeah. Okay, Makuda Pterodax on Super Chat. What was worth a shilling in today's money adjusted to inflation?
Really good question. And just off the top of my head, a shilling's probably like maybe a $20 bill. How about that?
Okay. Okay, McNemo comes in on Super Chat. A guinea for your thoughts. How common was it for the average person to use the services of a banking establishment?
An average person? Probably not at all. Yeah. It's like big money people are using banks in the time period, but small normal people, the kinds of money they trade with, they don't need it.
I'd imagine that trust in a bank wasn't as high back then either.
Yeah, banks are failing. Banks issue their own money in the time period in some cases. I'm not sure about, you hear about banks in England a lot more than you hear about banks in North America in the time period. So I'm not sure exactly what I would say about that.
So somebody in the chat just asked, how did they divide up pieces of 8?
Well, divide up pieces of 8. So piece of 8, right? And this is 8 bits. There's 4 bits, 2 bits, and then 1 bit, right? So if you don't have, somewhere I've got here, so can I find it? Probably not.
What are all these split off of?
It's hard to, yes, hold on.
Oh, sorry, that's where you
So it's called a piece of 8. This guy, a Spanish mill dollar, is a piece of 8. And it's because it's actually 8. Where is it? Well, it's a piece of 8. Just take my word for it. This guy is a piece of. Is he a 1 or a 2? Anyway, it's the equivalent. I think it's a 1, right? It's an eighth of the size. If you could see it, of course, it's all massively tarnished and anything, but it looks exactly the same. It's just like shrunk right up. But these are hard to come by. They run out of currency really quick. All these small coinages, they're changing hands so fast that they wear out. The big ones, they don't wear out as quickly because people aren't trading them as often. And so what do you do when you got a bunch of these, but you need a bunch of these? Well, they just chopped them up into pieces. It's probably not as common as we think it was in the time period. You don't see these little pie pieces all that often, but they did do it.
Somebody just commented in the chat, how can they get a Townsends dollar? That's called a gift certificate that you can use on our retail store, and you can buy them on our retail store.
There we go.
Gregory McGrath is in the super chat. Love your channel. Thank you for the escape you give this nurse. How would you perverse food preserve? Okay, how well it was just auto-corrected, I think. How would you preserve food until the family got home? Preserve for 12 to 24 hours.
Yeah, so today we have all these, warnings about, it's like, oh, you cook the food, make sure it goes right into the refrigerator, and, make sure your refrigerator is at 41 degrees.
Yeah.
They didn't have any of that.
My wife fought me, not fought me, she argued with me about this the other night because we were working on a recipe and I was kind of preparing it at home and I didn't refrigerate it overnight before I brought it in for John to try. And so, sorry, John.
And I'm probably going to die. They did not. They just. I mean, they might put it in the coolest room they've got. They might put it in the cellar. It's not going to be all that cool. And they just dealt with it. It's like I don't know. Maybe they had tough stomachs, whatever it was. But you don't hear about that often, them complaining of that, and it's just so common. There are multiple recipes where it's like, well, you just kind of cook this meat, you tie it up in a tight thing, and then, you let it set, and maybe 3 or 4 days, you eat it. We would never do that. We would never do that, and they're doing that all the time. Okay,
back to Super Chat. Mandatory carry just got a notification. Gotta support a good cause. Keep fighting, hashtag. Please get an email address. I don't know what the email address part meant, but thank you very, very much.
Yes.
Sir Frederick, how did they cut the bits? I'm picturing a guy with an axe just whacking a coin at the bar.
You'd use a chisel. That way you'd have a little bit more control. You'd know exactly where you were cutting it at. So it's not tough. I mean, it's silver, but it's not too difficult.
All right, Curry Man Tandoori Boy on Super Chat. How would you react if Nutmeg disappeared forever? Oh no!
I don't even want to hear a story like that.
Hidden Harvest Grow Light sends in a Super Chat without a question. Thank you so much. Gregory McGrath sends in a Super Chat. What is your favorite decade in history and why? A
favorite decade. He's going to make me get down to a decade. I'm surprised it isn't like, what's your favorite week in history?
What's your favorite hour?
Yeah, well, my favorite hour was, ouch. No, if I'm gonna sort of, tunnel into a time period, I tunnel into the 1770s just because. The good part about everything that's happening within the 18th century and before that and after that is that, it is all one big smear, right? So the 1770s are a product of the 1760s and so on and so forth. They all relate to each other. Well, that's the reason why we study history at all, isn't it? Right? Because even today, what happens today is because of something, that happened in 1770 and after that.
Somebody in the chat just asked how much books were back then.
Books are fairly expensive. About 2 live streams back, I talked about the little tiny chapbooks. So there are some books that are just little pamphlets, and they're selling for a penny, or something like that. But there are other smaller books that are selling for $1 or selling for a couple of 3 or 4 shillings. There are books in all those different categories, as well as very expensive, big bound books. They had different ways of dealing with that, like subscriptions, where you would purchase, the author, and you would, buy the book ahead of time so they'd have enough money to print it. So there's a lot of things going on with publishing in the time period. Okay. Like Kickstarter.
Christine Pearson came out on Super Chat. How did people keep their cash safe back then?
They had a big stick and they hit people when they tried to touch it. Because your money was, right there, not necessarily in the bank. You just protected it with force. Maybe you hit it too.
Okie Native is on Super Chat. How common was Spanish silver in the time period, and which denomination?
It is very, very common in the time period. There's even a time in when you will find like this guy, again, a piece of 8. And the English were so low on coinage, and they didn't really want to do all that minting work. They just had a big stamp, and they stamped in the middle of it. Yeah, this one's ours, and they would. So it's just really weird. So probably these Spanish milled dollars are the most common piece of Spanish coinage, and again, they're circulating all over the continent of Europe, in Great Britain, in North America, because there's so much silver coming out of Mexico, Central America, South America.
So let's talk about using coins versus bartering and trading. What do you got on that for somebody that is of middle to lower means?
Yeah, even in people that are upper means, say like you're a doctor or something, you're going to be doing a lot of transactions in barter instead of in coinage. Coinage is in very high demand. There's very little of it that's circulating in North America. So there's a great deal of, I might pay the doctor in livestock. Chickens. Here, you help me out. Here's 5 chickens. They're again going to be doing that kind of 3-way bartering where, the person might sell their produce to the local store, and then that credit would go to the doctor, and he could draw things from the store. He doesn't want your potatoes, but he might want something else.
Well, I was actually reading an account of a man from Bourbon County that was a distiller, and everything was in whiskey. Like he sold his whiskey to the local store, and he never spent any cash.
Right.
So
exactly. He just built up this credit with the store, and he just go and draw on it whenever.
Okay, so we've got some more super chat. JD and the Hizzle on super chat. We are going to be in the area at the end of June. Any chance to be open to the public then?
We are currently open to the public by appointment. So if you know exactly when you're coming and you call us up, you can do it. And
you might have the pleasure of meeting yours truly. John probably be here. That'd be better. Stephen Villamont. Greetings from the Farmington, New Hampshire. Just Farmington, New Hampshire.
Farmington, yes.
Yeah, I don't know why I put an extra "the" in there. I've always had aspirations to be part of the living history, and your work is a major inspiration for me. You have plenty of questions for today, plenty for another day. Oh, so he was just being really nice. Thank you. Jan Grigoret, I'm going to say.
Okay.
Thank you. No question. Keltoid5,
there
super
he is.
chat.
Yay.
Working in my yard wearing my Townsends hat and Townsends shirt.
Woo.
And I ripped the shirt on some barbed wire. Any info on tailoring the clothing repair? Any info on tailoring and clothing repair?
People are always repairing clothing. I mean, there's this time that you set aside. If you're a man and you're in a working situation, you're a sailor or you're out on the frontier, you're stopping and you're fixing your clothing. I read about that all the time. And in a household setting, it's like, you've got certain pieces of clothing, they're waiting to be repaired. So they're sewing that stuff up. They're making repairs. It might not be the most beautiful thing when you're done, but you're going to fix it so it doesn't rip more.
In the super chat, somebody said that they'd met both of us and we were both kind and gracious.
Wow.
Man, they got us on a good day.
Yeah.
Maybe we hadn't seen each other that day. That's probably what it was. St. Germain is in super chat. Still no riding lessons. My loss, your gain. So thank you very much for giving us your money for riding.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're not getting to
man,
ride.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Keltoid5 back in the super chat. This one is straight up bribe to get the people to push the like button. Oh,
there we go.
Fire that in, guys.
Woo.
Keltoid5 is asking, please.
Before we get any further, because ouch, time is running away from us, I wanted to get to this week's Patreon names. So every week I try to get to the brand new people that are on Patreon, and we've got some new folks. Dominika Sasson.
I always say Sasanka.
Sasanka!
That's what I go with.
That's it. Why am I such a dummy? Julian Maddox. Adam Gear. Thank you for having these easy names. Jason Stevens. Matthew Mattis. Happy DeHavel. Mark, Susanna, and Darcy. Hank and Catherine Doty. Let's see. Joyce Crosby. Fred Barnaby. Doug Eisman. And Gavin Jones Verity. Now, those are the new Patreon people, and Patreon is one of those places where you can sign up to do like a once a month, $2, $5, $10, whatever, right? And people, that's just such a great way to help us out. Scheduling, knowing what we can do for making future videos. And we have just a couple of folks that give us just, sometimes people just want to do a one-time thing, and PayPal is a great way to do that. Sherry Owens, James Ryan even says, I've been watching you for a while now. I saw the mushroom ketchup video a few years ago, and I've been in love since. I've been binging on Nutmeg Tavern the past few weeks and wanted to send you some support. Thank you, James.
Yeah. We ready to keep going?
Yeah.
Because we got a lot of work to do still.
Turn that crank.
All right. Gregory McGrath says, for a man that likes to cook only on my grill and barrel smoker, what is the best cookbook of yours for meat?
You know, there's a lot of just straight up meat cooking in many of the recipe books, not primitive cookery. So, and many times they're in sort of categories like we think of cookbooks today. So here's one on, cooking meat and poultry. Here's one on, doing cakes. And so the cookbooks are kind of divided up like that. And usually the very beginning has to do with sort of boiling meat, and then you'll have another section that is roasting meat, and then there's carbonados. So most of the recipe books, especially ones that are kind of fancy foodish, are kind of heavy on cooking meat in various different ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, John Talley on Super Chat. How quickly after the revolution did our money become uniquely our own?
Yeah, pretty quickly. I mean, we were doing some money experiments, the Continental Dollar right away, in the Revolution. And then, our money starts to do we take our own way with the cents, dollars, dimes, quarters kind of an idea, which isn't quite like anybody else's, especially breaking away from the English money. You saw how the steps were really weird with that. So it's like, a guinea or a pound would be worth 240 pence. I mean, it's like, what? Who made up that? In these kind of 12s, and it's just like an odd monetary system compared to what we're used to. But that, I think, is built right out of the French Revolution, where they're demonetizing or decimalizing everything. Let's have 100 and then cut it into cents. And then so that's from the French Revolution time period.
Asuma comes in on Super Chat. Were the 5 kopecks more used just as a means of making their dig worth of value?
Yeah, I don't know the full story behind the kopecks or how common it was. I mean, these guys would weigh you down. You had $1 worth of these, and I mean, you wouldn't be able to pick it up.
Yeah. Okay, Sue O'Connor on Super Chat. How common would eating goat be? Have you seen any recipes? Thanks for putting that in there. I saw that in the chat earlier, but I couldn't get to it.
Goat is not referred to a lot in the English cookbooks of the time period, so I don't know. I believe it's probably fairly common-ish, but the English are going to have a lot more sheep running around. Mutton is very popular in the time period, so I don't know about goat meat specifically.
Somebody's in the chat saying they're going to make the pork chops tomorrow.
You'll like it.
It was good. History with Brad just stopped in to say hi. Keep up the good work, y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Lisa Kilmer, funny reference to Doctor Who, a very enjoyable channel.
Thank you.
See, I didn't even get it. My wife would have. Nancy Gross sends in a super chat with no question. Dominica Sasanka is in here with a fox that is writing something that I can't read.
Look at that. See, there she is on the list, and I didn't even know how to say it.
Thank you so much. David Parker, just take my money. Great vid on money. Thank you. That is all of the super chats right now. Man, I had a lot of questions that I wanted to get to.
We're going to have to make these things longer or something. We just keep running out of time.
I'm trying to find one really good one. Just 1 second. Oh, okay. How did individual colonies have a national currency?
Well, they didn't really have a national currency. I mean, so each colony is like these paper pieces. They are being issued by the individual colonial government. So New Jersey is issuing this 6-pound note. They are like their own little countries. And both in their culture, and money is part of culture. And so they have their own money. And this, going from state to state, this didn't mean much. In fact, it might not mean anything at all. And the money had different values from state to state. So New York is going to look at Pennsylvania money and say, well, I might give you something for it, but I don't know. When I get back there, it might not be worth as much. So there's a lot of that going on. And there was different devaluings going on even during the 18th century where New York money, it's like, is that old New York money or is this new New York money? Those are two different amounts. So they really had very separate kind of systems.
Okay, I'm sorry. Super chat folks, thanks so much. Don't send us any more today because we won't get to them. I've got 2 more and then a great question from the chat, and we're going to sign out. You guys are great. Jessa G, if you had to pick one cooking vessel to start with, what would it be?
Well, I'd go with a Nutmeg Tavern mug, but...
Oh, gosh.
No, I mean, if you're going with a time period one, you go with the tin cup. It's the most kind of up and down, used by everyone kind of.
That's what you would choose for one to start with, is a tin cup?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that wrong?
No.
What would you start off with?
I would say a Dutch oven, because you can.
You said a vessel. I thought you meant like a drinking vessel.
Oh no, a cooking vessel.
Okay. It's like you're gonna cook in a tin cup, John.
Right,
what? Well, you can cook in a tin cup. It's just not very good. I wonder, I was confused by that.
Sorry about that.
Starting with a Dutch oven isn't so bad. The little brass kettles are a little more typical because they're lightweight. And they're more like what, say, a typical soldier might have. Although the tin cooking pot also. But a Dutch oven is quite versatile and great if you want to just get used to cooking with things at home.
Akira Sato is in the super chat. What lessons from the 18th century have you applied during the lockdown, and what new insight has the current situation given you?
The quarantine is like, I kind of, I grab up all that 18th century stuff and, I hold it and use it every day, right? For the past 20 years. So there isn't anything different that I do today than I did 6 months ago. I don't know, Ryan, don't you think? I mean... because of the way I kind of live anyway. It's like,
I think that a lot of folks here at Townsends are similar in that. Yeah. Well, we live in small farming communities. We don't live in big cities.
Right.
Or some of us live miles from town, so it's just a little different for us than for folks that are in an urban area, I think.
Yeah. Was there a second part of that question?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Happy Memorial Day weekend is in Super Chat. And in the chat, there was one really great question. If a traveler was leaving and had one bag, what do you think they would have in it? What's essential, and where can they get a period bag?
Well, the portmanteau that we sell is kind of like that bag. It's it's sort of like a round leather suitcase, and that's going to be a common traveling piece. And many people, that's all they're traveling with. They don't have anything more than a single bag. What we would fit into a carry-on today, yep, that's it. In fact, that's probably kind of big. You're going to have, the most important thing you're going to have is clothing in there. Clothing is expensive in the time period. It's not easy to come by. So it's fairly high value. Today, we think of clothing as, you know, if I got on an airplane today, I'm not going to, and I flew somewhere, I could take nothing with me and stop at a store and get everything I need for very little money. And it was like, I don't even need a carry-on. You know, if I had a pocket to put my documents in, good enough. It's not anything like that in a time period. So they're definitely going to have that bag. It's going to have mostly clothing in it. It's going to have a few small accoutrements in it. Things like a comb, you know, personal kind of care necessities, a razor, whatever like that, scissors. There's even these little packets in the time period that hold toiletry items. That's a very common thing that you're going to travel with. That's probably about it. There we go. We did it. An amazing Nutmeg Tavern episode. You guys just really came through with lots of great questions. So, I mean, every time we do this, it's like, this needs to take 3 hours. I don't know if I can live through it. Anyway, thank you so much for this great time that we've had together, and I hope you've had a great week. You know, you guys support us in so many different ways, whether it's Patreon or whether it's Super Chat today. Sometimes you're just watching, you're commenting. That makes a big difference. Sharing our videos, that is huge. And in this day and age with YouTube and how everything is, it makes a big difference. So thank you for all your support. Thank you for all your great comments. I hope you have a tremendous weekend. We'll see you later.